tutorial 2. So it starts off talking about building lists. And the list is just a collection of rows and columns, such as you see on the screen. This list is already created for you, but a few things to keep in mind when you're thinking about lists are: maintain a fixed number of columns or categories of information. Use each column to hold the same type of information. Don't leave rows or columns in the list area blank. Make your list the only information in the worksheet so Excel can more easily recognize the data as a list. And maintain your data's integrity by entering identical information consistently. Now, the first thing that we would like to do with this data is that we would like to do some sorting. So to do a simple sort, you can select a column. Now, if you know you want to do the one, you can just click on that one. We know we want to sort the sales rep A to Z. And if I come over here and I actually click on sort, it'll ask me if I want to include the other information that's in this list. And I'm going to let it expand so that all of the information will sort. And now I've sorted A to Z. Now, you can also do more advanced sorting by using this sort the values. So if I want to do that, and I'm going to undo, so we're back. If I wanted to do a more advanced sorting, I can click on sort, and you'll see that the dialog box pops up. Now, suppose I want to sort by sales rep, A to Z, and I want to add some other levels to be able to sort by within the sales rep. So if I want to also then sort by magazine, and then I could even add a third and maybe sort by the sales, which are smallest to largest. I have the ability to change if I wanted to, say, do Z to A, but I've decided I want to do it by sales rep, then by magazine, and then by sales, smallest to largest. I click OK, and I now have a more advanced sort that makes my list easier to understand. Now, you can also do other things as well. You can do things like custom sorts. So how do you do a custom sort? You can create your own list to do it by. So the first thing that I need to do is I need to create the list. So if I go to File, I go to, let's see, underneath File, I'm going to actually go to the Advanced here, and I'm going to go to Options, and then I'm going to go to Advanced, and then I have to scroll down and actually go to the General. Here it is, and you'll see Edit Custom List. Now I'm going to make a new list, so I'm just going to say Add, and it moves me over so that now I can create that list that I want to make. And that list I'm actually going to create is going to be West, I'm going to do North, I'm doing South, and East. This is actually going to be, whoops, I left the H out, so I'm going to fix that so I can click back over. So I've got West, North, South, and East. Once I have that, I can click Add, and you see it added this to my custom list. And now I can click OK, OK, and I'm back here, and now I'm able to use that. So if I click on Sort, you can see that I still have these. But if I decide I just want to use, say, my custom sort, then I can delete these if I don't want to use them anymore. And I can add a level, and now I could just say I want to do region, and I actually want to be able to use my custom sort to be able to do that. Okay, now, in order to use that, then I need to be able to do the custom list. So if I want to do that, I have other options available. You'll also see when I go down here to A to Z, Z to A, but I have custom list as an option. And I'm going to use this West, North, East, and South. I'm going to click OK. And now I click OK again. And I have sorted by my custom list that way. All right, so the next thing that I want to work on in this tutorial is I actually want to do some conditional formatting. So the tab right next to that one is conditional formatting. All right, and under conditional formatting, the first thing that I would like to do with this, because what conditional formatting is going to allow me to do is have the ability to make things happen based on a condition so that it automatically is adjusted when things change. All right, so first thing I need to do is go to conditional formatting. Under the Home tab, you'll see conditional formatting. And once I have that, I have lots of different options to be able to pick from. But the one that I'm going to do is I'm going to actually format the cells that are between two things. So if you go under Highlight Cell Rules, you go to Between, and then it becomes a matter of filling in the cells that you need. Now, the one thing that you also need to make sure of is that you select the column that you want, because if you don't select a column, then it's going to automatically. And here I've got sales rep in there. So if I really want to go between certain sales, I've got to make sure that that column is selected. So I'm going to select my sales column, conditional formatting. I'm going between, and now it automatically picked what it wanted to default it to, but I want to make it what I want. So I'm going to change this to 1,000. And I want it to be between that 1,000 and 1,200. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change it so that it has green fill with dark green text. And once I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and click OK. So conditional formatting, the value of that, again, is if something changes. So for an example, right now, this is between 1,000 and 1,200, this David Cushman. But if I have to change his data and say he changes to 900, you can see that the conditional formatting kicks in and he is no longer highlighted in green because he no longer fits the rule of between 1,000 and 1,200. All right, so a little bit about conditional formatting. There are other things that you can do that aren't in the tutorial but are well worth looking at. You can have top bottom, so you could highlight your top 10%, your above average, below average. Again, it's a very, very useful tool, has lots of different things that you can be able to quickly identify in your list. All right, so conditional formatting. The next thing that we want to do is autofilter. So in the tutorial, if you click on the run right beside conditional format, you'll see the autofilter. So in the autofilter, we're actually going to be able to hide all the records in a list that don't meet a certain criteria that we're looking for. All right, so for example, to display the sales history for all employees that had $1,000 orders in January, you could select January in the month as a drop down and then go to 1,000 in the sales and do a drop down list. So if I wanted to do the filter and I want all the columns to be available for me to be able to filter on, and I go back to data, you'll see the little funnel that looks, the filter that looks like a funnel. I click. And so in that example, if I wanted to do that, then what I would do is if I wanted to do the history, I would do January. So in here, so if I drop this down, you're going to see this is what's available, and the little pluses mean there are actually more things available in here. Okay, and you can see these right here, March, April. So anytime you have a plus, there are other things that are available, but we talked about the month of January. Now, the easiest way is to uncheck the all, because right now everything is showing. And if I actually only wanted to show January, I can select that one, click OK. Now I have January's. And if I actually went ahead sales here, you can see I have all the sales. If I just wanted to do the ones that had 1,000, then I go down to 1,000 and I can click OK. And these would be the results of that particular filter. Now, there are other things that you can also do as well with autofilter. There are really some very useful things to be able to do on that. So let's go ahead and we're going to do the autofilter a little bit more here. Okay, and we're going to do let's see, we're going to clear this one off first. So I'm just going to go here. Now there are two ways. I could click if I just wanted to do one and clear it, but if I want all of them to go away so that I'm starting over again, I can also just click the filter and you can see it undoes all the filters that I have available. Now to start again, then I can do other things in here to be able to do that as well. So if I wanted to do, say, region, and maybe I just wanted to do one thing, I could click on filter, go down, and you can see that I have all of these available in here to be able to pick from, okay, as well as some blanks. So if I want to only select East to use this filter, all right, then I can come again, unselect, click East, click OK, and now I have everything that is in the East region. Okay, now if I wanted to actually see blanks, I could do that as well. This is a good chance to see if something wasn't filled in, and you can see that our data is consistent and doesn't have any blank cells for the region. All right, I can clear it here, or again, if I want to make sure everything's off, I can click on this filter and it will all go away. All right, so that allows me to be able to do some really important filtering that way. And then there are additional things as well that I could do. So if I want to create a custom filter, I can do that as well. So suppose that I want to do sales between 500 and 800. So if I want to do the sales between 500 and 800, and actually I'm just going to go ahead and set filters for everything. But if I come here and want to do it for sales, I can do what's called number filters. And I can go down and you can see I have a between. And in the between, I actually want to do 500 to 800 to 800. And then I click OK. And this would actually give me all the sales that are between 500 and 800. Now remember, when I do that, then it's actually giving me, because it is greater than or equal to the 500, or less than or equal to the 800. And this would be the results of that sort. All right, the next thing in our tutorial that we'll talk about for a minute is subtotals. So in the subtotals, okay, you can do some useful things with them. So a subtotal command in the outline section of the data menu helps you organize and analyze a list by displaying records in groups and inserting a summary information such as subtotals, averages, maximum values, or minimum values. This subtotal command can also display a grand total for you as well. So to use that, again, in the data section, which is where we are, this becomes available to us. I'm on the subtotal worksheet doing this one now. And what I can do now is I can select the worksheet subtotals in here. So if I go over, you'll see subtotals right here. Now, again, unless you have the correct thing, will get a message like this if you have not selected the columns that you want to work with. So be aware that you need to be able to select, or you will end up with something like that. No matter where you're at, if I'm here and I click subtotals, I'm going to get this message right here. So how do I fix that problem? then I need to just make sure that I've selected what I want to be able to use. I click subtotal. You can see now by default it had magazine selected, but let's just say that I do want to do all sales rep, but I don't want to count the sales rep. I actually want to sum them up, but what I want to sum up is actually my sale. The reason that it was counting before was because it was going to count the magazines. But in this case, what I really want to have subtotals for is the sales. And I want the sum of those sales. And I want it broken down by sales rep. All right, so that's what would happen here. I would have it each changed, so each sales rep, then I would have a sum for their sales. Once I have that done, then I can click OK. And you can see that Rachel Anderson's total is $9,725 because it summed up her sales. All right, so that's used the subtotal command, as you can see there, for each sales rep is available that way. And then I also have a grand total. If you see the number signs, you just can open a little wider, and now I can see the number. That's all it means, is that it just isn't visible because it was too many numbers to be able to fit into the cell the way it was. By expanding it a little bit, I now can read those subtotals and the grand total right there. All right, so that was a little bit about using the subtotal command. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about in this tutorial is I want to go to pivot table data, because we're going to use pivot tables. And this feature is really important. It's a powerful built-in data analysis feature that's available to you. Okay, now, the pivot tables are one of the best things that you can really do. So how do you create one? First of all, put your mouse inside the data anywhere. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be exactly where mine is, but anywhere in here will do the same thing, because it considers this data a group of data, a list that we're going to work with. We're going to click on Insert, and we're going to Pivot Table. You'll notice the Pivot Table dialog box pops up automatically, and it also circles the data for me. What I do is I usually just give it a quick glance at to make sure it looks correct, and it does, because it's grouping the data for me. I do want it to go onto a new worksheet. All right, so I'm going to leave it here, and I'm going to just click OK. Now, when you get here, this is your pivot table feature that you're working with now. All right, and to do this, it's extremely easy to be able to do. In your spreadsheet, you have on the right-hand side, you'll see all the columns that you can actually work with. And these columns right here allow you to drag and drop things to see information about different things. So the first thing that we're going to do is that we're going to actually drag down, and we're going to use the region in the column. So if I drag, actually, I just want to use one here. So I'm going to drag region down right here, or you can also double click, and I'm going to actually put region in the column. All right, and then I'm going to also do the month, and I'm going to drag that into the filter. So I'm looking up here, and I found month. I'm going to put that under filter. All right, now once I've done that, then I can take a look at the what I want to actually go into my values, because your rows and your columns are actually going to be the thing that the descriptor that you're doing. Your value is what you're adding up about those descriptors. So here right now I have region that I have for the header, and I have the month that I'm going to filter by. And then I also need to be able to look at what I want to either count up or sum up or something like that. So I'm going to actually do, let's see, we'll do the sales. So if I double click, you can do it that way and make sure to check the box. Or you can also If I don't, I tend to like to drag and drop so that I know exactly where it's going at to. So you can see I have the regions, west, north, south, and east, and I have their sales summed up underneath those. So that allows me to be able to look at that particular information. Now, I have that information, but suppose I actually want to break it down even more. Maybe I want to look at it by the type of magazine. So if I go here and I'm going to drag magazine to the rows, and under the rows, now I have even more detailed information that I've been able to slice and dice from this particular data set. So you'll see here, I now can look at the sales for each store by the actual individual magazine. So business times I can see, dollars I can see. Now, not only can I do that, right now I have all, but because I have a filter on here, I can actually look at it by filtering the different months to be able to even break it down even more. So suppose if I do that, I want to drop this box down right here, and you can see that I have 1, 2, 3, 4 the months right here. So January through April. If I hit select, I could pick just say, I'll take those off. I would say I just want to see April. And this would allow me just to see what's in April 1st, 2024. I can clear it off if I want to, or add additional months. This way, if I want them all, I can go back to all. So again, the filters will allow us to even go more granular and be able to look deeper into not only now by this individual store, but also by the magazine, and then even down to the month. Now, another thing that you can do that's also very interesting is that you can actually do some what we call a slicer. So if you look on the ribbon up here, you will see that you are in the pivot table tools, and under that you can insert a slicer. And suppose I wanted to insert a slicer by sales rep. Now I have this neat little filter here that I'm able to say if I wanted to see this information by sales rep, then I could click on Nancy Drew here, and now I have Nancy Drew's sales for each store, for each magazine, and I could also filter by what month I wanted to see just for Nancy Drew. This is called a slicer. It's one of the newer features in the newer versions of Excel, and it really does allow you to create some sophisticated filters that are very easy to use. And usually when people see them, they're very impressed by them because they look very professional, very easy to use, and allow you really to make a really neat way to interact with the data. Now, if you want to modify, say, a pivot table view, you can always go back in and modify. So suppose I go back here and I decide that I actually want to modify my pivot table. And if I want to modify the pivot table to say, do the sales rep by the month, again, I can move things around here. So let's say I want to come in here and I want to do the sales rep. Then I can click back over here. I can take the region out by just dragging and dropping it. And suppose that I now want to do the sales rep by the month. I can take the sales rep. I'm going to put them under the row. I'm going to clear this filter off right here. And I'm going to drag the month down as my column. Okay, and you can see when I do that, it gives me years, quarters, and months. So I would decide which one I want to do. If I still want to use months, I can just remove the quarters and the years. And now you can see that this picture matches the one in your tutorial, T317. Okay, so this is modified now to be the sales rep with the month, okay, for all the magazines, okay, here. Okay, now, if I want to do for all the magazines and the ability to actually filter by magazine, I can drag that under filter, and I could pick different magazines to look at if I wanted to that way. All right, so that allows me to be able to look at some different information and modify a pivot table. I could have also created another new pivot table and have kept the other data and looked at this one as well. All right, now, the next thing that I also want to do here is I actually want to build a chart, and I'm going to do a stacked column chart. So I go up here, you'll see that under Analyze, there is an option for a pivot chart. And then once I have pivot charts up, I can go down or over. In this case, I want to do a stacked. So if I put my mouse on top of here, you'll see the one beside the default one is stacked. And then you'll notice that that actually looks just like the one that's in your tutorial. And this is a stacked columns chart. All right, I go ahead and I'm going to click on that. And then you will see that I have the chart here created. And at this point, I could add things like the chart elements. If I wanted to add a title or look at additional things, I can do that as well here. Now, the last thing in this tutorial is a data called Jitters Coffee. Now, Jitters Coffee is just some list of data here that you could analyze. And so what I'm asking you to do is to see if you have any trends that you wanted to look at in that would analyze the coffee trends in here. So if you do that, then you will see that you can find interesting things or useful things to be able to look at. So in the end, what I would like you to do is make a recommendation as a comment on the spreadsheet about which particular data you think is most useful, okay? And what are the top 4 sellers to start offering when Brood Awakening opens? So out of all the ones that you have here, the products, what would be the top 4 that you think Jitters Coffee should offer when they first open their store? What recommendation would you make? So again, one more time, what the bottom line is, I'd like you to analyze the data. I would like you to look at this data and recommend from this data what you think are the top 4 products that you think Jitters Coffee should offer when they first open their store. Make a comment in the spreadsheet itself about which 4 you're recommending, meaning when I say a comment, just pick a cell and type in the top 4 products and explain in 1 or 2 sentences why you think those top 4 should be included, and show your work. So what I mean by that is you make a pivot table maybe, and you look at the data. So I'm gonna create a pivot table, and I might want to go to, let's say these are the products, and I want to actually see what revenue is for each product. Okay, I might want to look at how each store was doing. I might want to see the months here of how the product was selling. Let's say I look at the months, and then I look at the coffee. Now, the one thing about months you can see is the months are grouped here. So if you actually look underneath, if I go over here to my coffee, I'm going to drop this little box down. You can see that I'm able to look at the sorting right here in the pivot table as well. Right, but one of the things to remember is that when you use the month in there, you can also see trends that way. So how could I easily see a trend on how the different coffee's doing? If I go back up to the pivot tables here, and I do a pivot chart, okay, you'll see that I can actually create a chart. Now, this chart is not very useful because of the fact that it's got a lot of stuff and it's hard to tell what's going on. But if I used a slicer to go with it, let me go back to that, and I insert one of those slicers that we talked about, I could take a slicer here, and I could start looking at each of these products individually. And now, especially if I put a trend line on it, this actually does see some multiple regression for me. And I can actually see how each one of these products are doing. And now I can use this data to be able to make a recommendation about what are the top 4 products that you think that Jitters Coffee should start with when they open. All right, and then put down in 1 or 2 sentences why you picked those 4 right here on the page. So if I just went in the cell and started typing, my top picks are, and then I wrote out what they are, and then I might write underneath it just a couple sentences about why I picked these 4, and then explain in just a couple sentences why. So this will allow you to do some really nice analysis very quickly, as you can see, on data like this that can be turned into something like this that can be a very useful way to quickly do analysis to see how, what's going on in the data. In this case, how the coffee sold over the months of January through December, and allow me to compare them and pick 4 of the top ones for whatever reason I think the top 4 to be able to sell when the store first opens up that way. Save your spreadsheet, and make sure when you save your spreadsheet that you include this spreadsheet when you submit your work into Canvas. So you will end up with 2 Excel spreadsheets as well as your Word document, and your Word document will also have a link to your website in it.